"Nobody is coming for you." Her mother said it every Monday, over the mending, in the same tone she used for the price of coals, and Petronella Hale had heard it so often by the age of 25 that it had stopped being a sentence and become a piece of the furniture, like the crack in the parlour ceiling or the stair that gave under the left foot. It was not said cruelly. That was the thing that took the longest to understand. Mrs. Hale believed it as she believed in rain, and she said it out of what she considered kindness, on the theory that a girl who expects nothing cannot be disappointed, and she had said it so long that she no longer heard herself say it, and neither, by that spring, did anybody else in the house. The house was called Grayle End, and it had been holding its breath for 6 years. It stood in a hollow above the marsh road, with its back to the weather, 21 rooms of good Jacobean brick, and the damp had got into the north front the year after Petronella's father died, and had not been got out, because getting it out would have cost £40, and the household ran on 160. There were fires in 3 rooms. There were pails under 2 of the pictures in the hall. The shut rooms had a smell in them that Petronella knew, in the way that a person knows the smell of illness in a relation, meant that a gutter somewhere had been full of leaves for a very long time. She was 24. She was small and brown-haired, in a gown of the colour a slate roof goes in rain, turned once and dyed once, and the dye had not held across the shoulders. Her hands were cracked at the knuckles from cold water. Her eyes were grey and level, and gave back exactly what they were given. On the last Monday in March, she was up at 5:30, as she was every day, and she did the flues with a holly bough, because the sweep charged 1 and 6, and a bough cost nothing, and she settled with the butcher at the back door, and she carried up her mother's chocolate, and at 11 she went out to the wash-house at the end of the yard and shut the door behind her, because the wash-house was hers. What Grayle End did not know, and had not known for 5 years, was that its damp north front had been quietly paid for out of that wash-house. Her mother's family had been Barrow, and there had been a receipt in her grandmother's hand for a hard yellow soap made with marsh samphire ash that took grease out of wool without taking the nap. And Petronella had made it first for their own laundry, and then for the vicarage, and then for the wool staplers at Marbury, who had a use for such a thing, and paid for it. £280, over 5 years, banked at Marbury under the name Barrow, and every farthing of it spent on the fabric of that house, in sums small enough that nobody asked. The west gutter, the kitchen range, the 2 windows on the stair, the £11 for the surgeon when her brother Kit had the fever in the year 21. She had told nobody. A woman with no money is pitied. A woman with £280 in a house that cannot pay its butcher is asked where she got it, and the asking has only one shape, and there is no answer to it that a frightened family will believe. So she made her soap in the wash-house, and let her mother go on saying that nobody was coming, and privately agreed with her, and had made her peace with it. The Duke of Cranmere knocked at the door on the 2nd of April, in the rain, alone. On a horse he had led the last half-mile, because the marsh road had gone. He was 34, and looked older, in a coat as black as a shut door, and he had a face that had been a good-looking face before somebody went over it with a plane and took all the give out of it. He had come about a drain. 200 acres of Cranmere land ran with the Hale marsh along the old cut, and the cut had silted, and 11 of his tenants were losing hay every June because of it. And he had come himself, because he had learned in 9 years that the moment a place knows what you are, it stops being itself. He gave his name at the door as Mr. Cranmere, and asked for the master of the house, and was told there was none. He was shown into a hall with pails in it, and Petronella Hale came in from the wash-house, with her sleeves pinned back and her forearms wet to the elbow, and told him, without preamble, that the cut had silted from the Marbury end, and not from theirs, that it wanted 11 days of 2 men with a scoop, that she had costed it at £9 the previous autumn, and that the Hale share of it was half by the old agreement, and the Hale half was not to be had, and she was sorry, and that was the whole of it. He looked at her. He looked at the pails. "You are the daughter of the house." "I am." And you have costed a drain. Somebody has to, said Petronella. There is no one else, and the water does not care who does the sums. Her mother, coming in behind her with the mending still in her hand, said, in the flat, pleasant voice of a woman making conversation, that Nell would forgive her, but he must not think her a person of any consequence, for she was the plain one, and the useful one, and nobody was ever coming for her, and would he take tea? And the Duke of Cranmere stood in that hall for 1 second, 2, 3, and said nothing at all, because he could not think of a single thing to say that would not have been a discourtesy to a hostess in her own house. Old Mrs. Pauncefort, who had cooked at Grayle End for 31 years, and had come up the passage with the tray, set it down on the sill and had to stand a moment, because she had heard that sentence in that house perhaps 400 times, and had never once heard it land in front of a stranger. He came back on the Thursday about the drain, and then on the Monday, and then, by the end of April, 3 mornings a week, and it was never called anything, and what they did was work. He held the mould while she cut the soap. She sent him up a ladder to look at a gutter, and he came down and reported the length of the blockage in feet and inches, because that was the only way she would take a report. He was, she found, exactly what he seemed, and nothing like it. A man who had not been asked a question he could answer in 9 years. His elder brother had drowned in that same cut in the year 20, going after a boy who had gone in after a dog, and the boy had lived and the dog had lived and his brother had not, and the cut had been scheduled for scouring that spring, and the money had been in the estate accounts, and it had not been done, and the man who had not done it was still the agent at Cranmere, a soft, pink, pleasant person named Mr. Rowley Sage. What the Duke had done about it was nothing, for 9 years, because looking at the accounts meant looking at the page where the scouring stood entered and paid for. He had signed whatever was put before him every quarter since. He told her that in the wash-house in the 3rd week of May, with the rain going on the roof, and she did not say she was sorry. Then scour it this year, she said, and go through the books, and stop paying a man 9 years' wages for the privilege of not knowing what you have already guessed. We'll take a very short break. If you don't want to miss new stories, please subscribe to the channel. It was old Lady Ordway who made the thing official, in the way of old women, which is to say, without asking anybody. She was 81, and lived at Marbury on 400 a year, and a spine like a poker, and she had buried a baronet and 2 sons, and had missed nothing in that county for 50 years, and she came to Grayle End in the 1st week of June, because she had heard that her godson had been seen leading a horse up the Marsh Road 3 times in a fortnight. She spent 20 minutes with Mrs. Hale, and 11 with the daughter, and formed her opinion in the first of the 11. You are not what I expected. I am sorry to disappoint you, my lady. I did not say I was disappointed. I said you are not what I expected, and there is a great difference, girl, and you had better learn to hear it. Who does the flues in this house? I do. Who settled the surgeon in the year 21, when your mother told the parish she could not? And Petronella Hale, who had answered every other question in her life without flinching, stood in that parlour and said nothing at all. 1 second, 2, 3, and the old woman watched her not answer, and said, more gently than was her habit, I have thought for 4 years that there was money in this house that nobody can account for. I did not inquire, because I did not wish it stopped. But you are being looked at now, and when a woman is looked at, the looking does not stop at the part she chose. Get it into a book with dates on it, and get somebody respectable to witness the book, and do it before somebody makes you do it. Mr. Rowley Sage came in the last week of June. He was 46 and pink and pleasant, and had traced the Barrow account without much trouble, because a wool stapler's ledger is open to any man who asks agreeably. He found her at the wash-house door. Miss Hale, or Miss Barrow, as Marbury has it. He smiled. He always smiled. It was the same muscle. £280, my dear, in a house that owes the butcher 11 guineas. You will be asked where it came from, and you will say soap, and they will laugh, and then they will stop laughing and think about your late father's affairs, and about how convenient it is that the only person here who keeps a book is the only person with anything in the bank. His Grace holds his audit at Cranmere on the 14th of July. Be gone before it, and there is nothing said. And Petronella looked at the pink, pleasant face and saw the fear under it for half a second, and understood that he had not come about her money at all. He had come because a woman who could cost a drain at £9.4 had been standing too near a cut he had been paid to scour in the year 20. She had 16 days. She used them at night, with the wash-house door bolted and one tallow candle, because a half-built case can be laughed away, and a finished one cannot. She had the Marbury bank book, 5 years, every payment, in the clerk's own hand and signed. She had the vicarage and the wool staplers to say what they had bought and when. She walked 11 miles and got from the drainage contractor at Marbury his own tally. No work on the Cranmere cut since the year 18. She got the marks of 4 marshmen who had scooped the Hale End unpaid in the dry summer of 23 because nobody would pay them. And she got, from the Duke himself, laid open on the wash-house bench on a Tuesday morning, the estate account for the year 20, with £110 entered, and paid for the scouring of the cut in the April, 6 weeks before his brother went into it. She copied the whole of it fair, twice, and checked her columns twice, and said the totals out loud to the empty room, because a number said out loud cannot be argued away by a frightened man. The audit sat at Cranmere on the 14th of July, 51 men in the long room and the tenants standing at the back. Sage laid it out beautifully. He had a duty that gave him no pleasure. There was a young woman of the neighbourhood who had for 5 years been trading in the county under a name not her own and had £280 by her, while her mother's household went unpaid. He made no accusation. He would only observe that she had lately contrived a great deal of private access to his Grace, and he was very sorry, extremely sorry, and supposed nobody could be blamed but the woman, since it was in the nature of such people to get in where they could. 51 faces turned. Petronella Hale stood up and found that the dread of a thing is nearly always larger than the thing. "Every word Mr. Sage has said is true," she said, and her voice went the length of that room without her lifting it. "I have sold soap in Marbury for 5 years under my mother's name, which is Barrow, because my own name would have shamed my mother, and here is the bank book, with every payment in the clerk's hand, and he is in this room, and may be asked. Every farthing of it went into the fabric of Grayle End, and here are the receipts, the west gutter, the range, 2 windows, and £11 to Mr. Fenn the surgeon in the year 21 for my brother's fever, which my mother had told the parish she could not pay. I told nobody. That was cowardice, and I do not defend it, and since I am to be looked at today, you shall have the rest of it. £110 stands entered and paid in this estate's book for the scouring of the Cranmere cut in the April of the year 20. The contractor at Marbury has done no work on that cut since the year 18 and has written it out and signed it. 4 men who scooped the Hale End unpaid 3 summers ago have made their marks. The cut was not scoured in the April. She did not say the next part. She did not have to. Everybody in that room had been at the funeral in the June. Rowley Sage laughed. It was small and pleasant, and it was the worst thing he could have done, and he knew it before it was out of his mouth, because no man laughs at a column of figures. And in the silence after it, the Duke of Cranmere came the whole length of that room, and stood beside her, and said, to the table, in the flattest voice in England, "The lady has my accounts because I gave them to her. Send for the contractor." What followed was slow and unlovely, and took until dark. There was a night in August when he stood with a pen and every intention of writing to 7 men who would have finished Sage by Michaelmas, and Petronella put her hand flat on the paper. "Send him to the law, and not one letter," she said. "He robbed this estate, and he can answer where there are figures and a bench, and a man may reply. But he did it because he was frightened of being poor. And I have been frightened of being poor for 6 years, and I did secret things about it too. And mine happened to be honest. That is luck as much as virtue, and I am not certain enough of the difference to stand over any man and enjoy it. And there is this: if you finish him with letters, you will spend the rest of your life believing you did something about the year 20, and you did not. Scour the cut. So the cut was scoured, 11 days, 2 men and a scoop, and Sage answered at the assizes and made restitution of about 1/3, and the Duke made up the rest out of his own pocket and counted it cheaply bought. The 11 tenants got their hay that June, and the June after. And he waited until every shilling of it was settled, and the Hale butcher paid, and the north front opened and dried, so that there should be nothing whatever left between them that could be mistaken for a debt. And then he came to the wash-house in the October, with his sleeves already back. "There is nothing owing," he said. "Your house is dry, and your mother's account is closed, and neither of them came from me. You did that yourself, over 5 years, with a receipt of your grandmother's, and I have made sure the county knows it. Lady Ordway has offered you a home for life, whatever you say to me, and has undertaken to outlive me, if I make you uncomfortable in it. So I am asking a free woman." He turned the soap mold over in his hands. "You told me in April that the water does not care who does the sums. Nobody has said a true thing to me in 9 years but you. Will you marry me?" "On one condition," she said. "Name it." "Mrs. Pauncefort comes with me, and is never again asked to carry a tray up that passage at her age." A year on, in the April, the Duchess of Cranmere came out of a wash-house at Cranmere, with her sleeves pinned back and her forearms wet to the elbow, because she had kept the receipt and saw no reason to stop, and she walked down to the cut, which ran clear, and stood on the bank of it a while with her husband, who had gone into that water once in 9 years and had come out of it. Her mother came to stay in the summers, and was comfortable, and could not entirely stop saying the sentence, and said it more quietly, and once or twice caught herself. "Nobody is coming for you" is not a prophecy. It is a habit, and it is generally said by somebody who has stopped expecting anybody to come for her either, and it is passed down a house the way damp is passed down a wall, quietly, for years, until one person decides to open the gutter. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.